Hey guys, welcome to the FitTown Show. I'm Coach Andrew with Coach Tony, and today we're going to be talking about how to get victory over your vices. So it's week 1 of our nutrition challenge, and we're going to have a 4-week challenge over the next month that we're going to be doing, and we want to include you guys at home, whether you're doing the challenge or not, on some of the things that we're going to be focusing on. So every week we have a wild card category in our challenge, and this week we're going to be focusing on vices, and over the next 4 weeks we'll be coming at you guys with podcasts to talk about our wild card category, and hopefully you can play along at home or start to build in some of these strategies at home, even if you're not doing the nutrition challenge. Okay, so today we're talking about vices, and we're gonna go through a few of our favorite tips and steps to start breaking down those vices, breaking down those bad habits, and starting to eat a little bit healthier. So step 1, Tony, how do we get that victory over vices?
So people have been asking, like, when I pick out the vices that I want to give up, should they be food related or habit related? And we kind of gave people the advice of, pick one of each, but also there's going to be some overlap. So the first step really to getting rid of a vice or avoiding your vice, however you want to word that the best to make it good for you, is to bring awareness to the vice. And why I say, is it food or is it habits? I had a problem with being addicted to chocolate after dinner. And it wasn't necessarily the chocolate that I was craving. That wasn't really the vice. It was actually the habit of, as soon as I finished dinner, washed my plate, put the plate in the dishwasher, it was like, I had to have chocolate. Mm-hmm. And so I had to bring awareness to the habit because of the vice of chocolate. So when we talk about giving up the vice, yes, we're giving up the chocolate, but we also have to kind of give up or rewrite the habit.
Yeah, so, and that's kind of individual to everyone. For some people, it might actually be the chocolate. If chocolate shows up at work, they're like, oh my God, I have to have some. But for a lot of people, if there was no chocolate in the house, it would be more about the after dinner, I have to have something sweet, or maybe not even something sweet. I have to have something after dinner that's not like a real food dinner type of thing.
Yeah, so some people might be giving up the act of dessert.
Yeah.
And that dessert might be a broad category. It might be an after dinner drink, where that drink can change. Mm-hmm. So you can't just say, okay, I'm going to give up beer, but have then wine after dinner every night, just to kind of get around the loopholes.
Yeah. So how do we go from awareness to starting to actually take positive steps in the right direction? How did you start to break down that habit?
So when because it was immediate. So you'd finish that cue of like washing the dish after dinner, and it was like, I would find myself in the pantry, like without even a second thought. And that's where I had to set like a rule for myself to say like, you know what, I'm going to give myself 10 minutes where I don't go to the pantry, I don't grab a piece of chocolate, I go play with my kids, I ask them to go for a walk around the neighborhood. I tried to think of these things to fill that 10 minutes, but I would not let myself have chocolate. The key here is that I would agree to let myself have chocolate after the 10 minutes. Yeah. So it wasn't like I was totally getting it out of my life. I was just saying, look, in the next 10 minutes, can I do without it? And then in 10 minutes, let me see if I need it and want it, and I'll let myself have it.
That's a cool strategy. Yeah, I've seen that with I've encouraged that with alcohol as well, of you can have another drink, but you just have to drink a glass of water first, right? So you're not telling that person no, but usually through the act of creating space, it limits the impact of what we do. And maybe it's now 4 nights out of 7 that you have the chocolate instead of 7 out of 7. And maybe when you do have it, you enjoy it more and eat less of it as well.
Yeah, and that space gives you awareness. It gives you time to create awareness. So that's where a lot of people with the food that they're trying to give up see what the habit is behind it, try to get some space from the habit, build yourself like a 10-minute buffer, maybe a glass of water buffer, and just kind of take awareness and see how you can create some different habits around that.
So that goes into step 2, which is creating friction between you and your habits. And so space and friction could be similar, but a little bit different. Friction could be not having that thing in the house altogether, right? So you might have the craving for chocolate, but now it's just not even there for you to have. And that's a definite friction And there's a lot of people that, I mean, I'm pretty much this way for the most part, is like, I won't have stuff in the house because if it's in the house, it's pretty much going to get eaten within a couple days. So we tend to go out to have stuff, or if we bring it in, we bring it in knowing that we're probably going to finish it within 24 to 48 hours.
Yeah, I think that's a big one. And that's one, we've done a bunch of these challenges so far, and our day one email would be clean out your pantry.
Yeah.
Because if you have it in the house, most likely you're going to indulge in it and kind of go off track and get back to it. So it is best when we're talking about building friction between you and your vices is just try to get rid of it altogether. Also a lot of people have like wine displays in their house, like something that makes it even more appealing, and it's always in your face, like, yeah, I'm going to give up wine, but then they have this like amazing like wine, display, and it's just like, let's empty it. Let's empty the display for a week just to give you some, you may not think it's a big deal and it's affecting you, but it is. It's definitely like planting that seed in your mind, like, man, I want a glass of wine. I also notice so we have like Hulu right now for watching TV. And back when we used to watch TV, I would notice you see a lot of food commercials, a lot of restaurant commercials as you watch TV. And now that we don't have that, because we don't watch any commercials, because you get to stream through Hulu and Netflix and what have you, I don't get those cravings anymore. Yeah. So it's like I've indirectly built friction between me and late night snacking because I stopped watching commercials.
Yeah, I just make it really hard on myself by watching Food Network and
exactly.
food shows on YouTube and stuff like that, and just torture myself throughout the night. But that's huge. We had gotten moved a fridge from the gym to our house and our garage, and having like an extra fridge in the garage, you can just keep all, your beers out there, your ice cream out there, and that little bit of friction, not seeing it is huge. And obviously it's there, but it's just completely different where every time you open the fridge, you have to see this stuff versus having to be more intentional to go outside and grab it. It doesn't weigh on you, especially if you're if for our challenge, we're really trying to go 7 days without having these vices, you're going to make it way harder on yourself if you're seeing that thing every moment of every day.
Yeah, so we just went through a kitchen renovation. We just literally finished it up, and that was something I definitely noticed because we have a pantry off by the garage, and we had to empty our cabinets out, had to get rid of all those easy access snacks and treats, put them in the back of the pantry, so it was a good walk, and you had to work to get to them, and just that difference kept the quarantine 15 off as we went through that process.
Yeah, and then another way to take this a step further is to make healthier options more visible, right? So if you do get the unhealthy stuff out, if you've prepped some healthier stuff that is good stuff, maybe it's fruit, right? Maybe you're someone that gets sweet cravings. If you have fresh fruit always on hand, ready for you, then that could be something that handles a lot of those sweet cravings, versus if you don't have the fruit ready, it's not as visible, then that just makes everything a little bit harder.
Yeah, so that is step 3, is substituting with the healthier alternative. So a lot of times when people come into these challenges and we're like, you got to get rid of this, you got to get rid of that, they feel very like they're losing something. And people don't like to lose things. We all have that innate thing in us where we're just like, man, I hate to lose this thing I already have. But when we talk about actually adding something in that's into their life that's healthier, it's a better choice, they're like, oh, I can get with that, I can do that. One of the things I struggled with was ice cream every night. So of course I had my chocolate right after dinner, then we would go through the bedtime process with kids, and then it was as soon as that was ending, it was ice cream, I need it. And I substituted that ritual with a hot chocolate. So you would actually take the bone broth protein, the chocolate flavored protein, hot water, stir it up with a mixer, and it's a really tasty thing to make and a great substitute for a bowl of ice cream.
Yeah, we've basically been doing the same thing, Nikki and I, where we have, you use the bone broth protein, we've been using the chocolate collagen sports research brand with almond milk, unsweetened almond milk. So you're talking maybe 120 calories for that, a lot of protein, and a lot less damage. You're a lot more full after when you have something like the protein shake instead of the ice cream. Another thing for people could be, the substitute could be, all right, I'm going from real ice cream like Ben and Jerry's to Halo Top or something like that. Like you have a lot less impact, negative impact, if you eat, half a container of Halo Top versus even a single serving of Ben and Jerry's in terms of calorie load. For others, it might be, all right, I crave crunchy stuff, salty stuff, and you could go to like rice cakes or skinny popcorn instead of like chips and things like that. So there's little substitutions you can make. I think the thing that I would caution people with that is just make sure that the substitution you're making is actually an upgrade over what you're doing, because there's a lot of sort of gray area health foods like bars. A lot of bars are in this category. A lot of like cereal type things, granola, yogurts are in this category where it's like, oh yeah, I'm doing the healthier alternative. I'm choosing granola instead of ice cream, but you might actually not be doing yourself. It might not be an upgrade than what you're currently doing in terms of calories and even sugar. It might be more sugar.
Right. You still have to look at not only the ingredients, switching to good ingredients, but also like, is it still the same amount or even more carbs?
Right.
Like you could have been switching your late night snack and thinking I'm eating something better, and the previous snack was like 15 carbs and now you're on 20 carbs on what looked to be a healthier snack. So definitely pay attention to not only the ingredients of a healthier alternative, but also the calories and the macros, the carbs, fat, and protein that come with it.
Yeah, and the other thing I would say is, in this challenge, we're giving people 7 days of a clean slate. It's never a bad idea to give yourself 7 days of a clean slate. But the other thing is you want to actually evaluate the negative impact of your vice. Two situations that I can think of. We had someone last challenge that their vice was dark chocolate. And when I talked to them further, they ate 1 square of dark chocolate, like a high percentage dark chocolate, after dinner, and they were perfectly fine with exactly 1 square. And it's like, okay, if that's the case, you don't need to cut out that vice. That's a great thing to have, especially if it's just 1 square, and then move on. Similar with wine. Like, wine's not a terrible thing. Like, there's a lot of people that just love wine. They love trying new wines, and they're like good with half a glass. They have half a glass with dinner. They don't even finish it, and they're like, it was just more of the ritual of pouring it and kind of being able to sip on something, and they're good. So I would say the impact of that vice is really not that bad. And if you start trying to create all these alternative things that you might not enjoy more than the actual vice itself, you're probably just better off with the vice. And again, it's good to go periods of time, a week, a month without that thing, just to like give yourself that separation. But there's no reason to knock that thing off long term. It's probably doing you more good than it is harm.
Yeah, I think rituals, you mentioned the word rituals. I think that's a big thing to focus on as we do give up something. It may be years that people have written this story of I need chocolate after dinner, and you're gonna do your best to rewrite that story in a week, in 28 days, but most likely we're just gonna make some ground on it, and we can't overwrite it altogether. So I want people to keep that in mind as they're doing this challenge. We're just doing our best to rewrite some of the rituals that we've built for ourselves over the years. So take this as an opportunity to rewrite rituals, right? Don't just get rid of something and then think about, okay, on day 29, I can't wait to have this again. I think if we do that, we're setting ourselves up for failure.
Yeah. Danielle's really big on the healthy substitutes. I know she really likes to kind of go to the creative lab and try to make her own thing of like, okay, what is it about this thing that I like, and can I make it a lower calorie version, and again, if it's ice cream, maybe it's a smoothie that tastes and feels like ice cream. It's cold, but it's a lot better, If it's pizza, okay, how can I make it lower calorie with cauliflower crust and a little less cheese and minimize the impact? Little things like that can make a big difference, and it's an opportunity to be creative with it, for sure.
Yeah.
All right, so last step and strategy we're going to share here is to flip the script, okay? So we've talked a lot about this idea of cues and cravings, and then trying to fulfill that cue, and it can be very difficult for people to remove that cue, and sometimes even to replace that cue with food, because they're still in the back of the mind wanting that original thing. So one of the things that we have found is a really cool strategy is if you bring it back to your why and your goals, and you actually do something that brings you closer to your goals instead of further from your goals, that has nothing to do with food at all. Okay, so a lot of people are taking on a challenge like this because they want to look better, they want to feel better, they want to lose weight. Maybe they want to get push-ups. That's one of the goals for people in this challenge. And when that cue comes up, you finished dinner, you finished washing the dishes, you're ready to grab the chocolate. Instead of grabbing the chocolate, if you drop and do 10, 15, 20 push-ups, now you've just taken something that was potentially going to have a negative impact on your goals and flipped it and made a positive impact. And you've changed your state in that moment too. You've changed your whole nervous system to be like thinking about like healthier stuff rather than unhealthy stuff.
Yeah, these are the stories that I love hearing from our challengers over the years. Like these stories of, I used to have 3 beers after dinner, now I go for a mile-long walk with my wife. Like that change is huge, and we hear them all the time. People that are just in that habit of drinking after dinner, or I don't know, like you said, like watching the news. So maybe they might change it to, hey, I used to watch the news with my family or my wife, and now we read books, for 20 minutes after dinner, and like just have a really nice time talking. Like, and to hear those changes of the habit and just flipping the script on those rituals is really cool to hear, because there's some lasting change there.
Yeah, and a lot of these things are going to be hard at first, but I wouldn't let yourself plan the long term based on your feelings and emotions short term. So like a lot of people will, obviously if you love having peanut butter or wine or chocolate after dinner, you have the craving there, you get that dopamine response from it, and it feels good to have that thing. And the first week of not having that thing, in all honesty, it usually sucks to not have that thing. But if you can let yourself get through that initial gap period where it stinks, then a lot of times your body adjusts and you actually will crave the other thing as much as this. So that's really an important thing, is don't get too caught up in the feelings as you're making changes, because those feelings will evolve and change. You hear it all the time when we do these challenges, is that my taste buds are different. Food tastes different. This thing that wasn't sweet before is sweet. And the same thing is true with those habits. Going for a walk wasn't something that I looked forward to. It wasn't something that I enjoyed. I'd rather sit down on the couch and open a bag of chips, some chocolate, and watch the show. But if you can break that habit, then and keep it going long enough, then you tend to crave that just as much as the old not so good habit.
Yeah, and I think don't give up something that you think that we want you to give up. So I think a lot of people, like your chocolate example, they're like, well, I have chocolate every day after dinner, I got to give that up because that's probably what you want me to give up, right? And it's like, well, if the thought of that chocolate helped you have a better lunch, it helped you have better snacks after lunch, it helped you create a better dinner, it helped you avoid maybe a drink with dinner, and it did all those positive things for you, don't just give it up because we think you think you should give it up. Focus on the thing that really makes a difference in your life.
Yeah, that's a really good tip. I think about Tim Ferriss's book, The 4-Hour Body, and he was someone that kind of brought the cheat day back into resurgence a few years ago. And it's not that a cheat day is so beneficial, but it allowed people to eat so much better for the other 6 days of the week because they knew this day was coming. And sometimes people would go overboard, but sometimes people wouldn't even do that bad on the cheat day, because once it would come, they would be like, oh, I just want to keep feeling good. But that little knowledge of knowing that they could cheat, could have something later on the night, allowed them to be better throughout the week. And I think that's individual to the person. And you have to really kind of look into where you are now with this stuff and say, okay, well, what's the most appropriate decision approach for me today?
Yeah, so, everyone's like, now we're confused. Now they don't want us to give up chocolate.
Yeah.
All we're asking is just zoom out. When you're thinking about one little vice, what does that vice have? What is the bigger effect that vice has on you, right? So does two glasses of wine, or what was a planned 1 glass of wine that leads into 2 or 3, stop you from getting to a 5 a.m. or 6 a.m. workout the next day? right? And does that happen 1 to 2 times a week? Like, what if you got those workouts in? What if you skip those glasses of wine? Like, just zoom out and look at the bigger picture of these vices and see what their effect is, because their effect might be way smaller than you think, and they might be way bigger than you realize.
Yeah, and join us. We're doing 7 days of no vices. Pick 2 to 3 vices, go 7 days without them, and that will bring you a lot of that clarity and a lot of that zoom out aerial view of what's happening. So thanks for joining us. We'll see you guys next week with the wild card week for week 2.